Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first Live with Sales Leaders broadcast from our EMEA headquarters here in sunny Dublin. And for a change, it is actually sunny in Dublin. So just before we get started, we're doing live Q&A inside the 124 console that you have for this broadcast. So please submit questions during the broadcast, and we'll try to answer as many of them as we can as we get towards the end. We're really excited to have you here with us and to gain insights into how top sales professionals are using technology, creating competitive advantage, crushing their quotas and crushing quotas for your organization as well. So before we get started, a few introductions. My name is Liam Halpin. I lead the LinkedIn Sales Solutions business for EMEA and LATAM. I've been involved in B2B sales since 1991. I've worked for organizations such as Canon, Dell, and Fujitsu Siemens, amongst others. And one of the things that I really like about being involved in sales is how you can build relationships over time. And actually, I'm joined today by somebody that I've had a business relationship with for over 20 years. And 20 years ago, he was actually a competitor to the company that I was working for. Shortly after that, I became his customer, and today in 2019, he's my customer. So great to have him along. So I'm going to introduce you to the panel, and we're going to start with Glenda.
Hi Liam, how are you?
I'm great.
Great. My name is Glenda Kirby. I lead customer success for EMEA and LATAM at LinkedIn. Been here 4.5 years. From an engineering background originally in the telephony space, worked for 3 Ireland, BT and Aircom. And more recently now, I've moved from transformation into customer success.
Fantastic.
Yeah, what I love about working in sales, along with the buzz, is solving complex solutions. I like meeting customers, finding out what their challenges are, and coming up with a solution.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Liam. Jimmy Kill is my name, so I run the digital sales business for Vodafone business based here in Dublin, but spend lots of time on a plane around Europe. I've been with the organisation about 1.5 years before that. Worked for lots of the big tech companies. So I was at Oracle, I was with Dell for a while. And Liam and I haven't known each other for 20 years. It's more like maybe 10 or 15 years.
You keep believing that, Jimmy.
Following on the kind of what do I like about sales? What I love is the opportunity that it presents to people. You don't need to be a STEM graduate. If you've got the right attitude and curiosity and a good EQ, you can be really, really successful and have a really good quality of life. I think that's fantastic.
Great.
My name is Paul Terry. I lead the European SMB and mid-market acquisition business for LinkedIn's Sales Solutions. I've been with LinkedIn coming up on 4 years. Prior to that, I actually was a client of this very service when I was leading a European sales organization. And I liked it so much that I felt 3 years after that I had to join the business and become part of that transformation. What do I love about sales? I suppose at an almost esoteric level, it's the getting to the point where clients will actually trust you enough to tell you what's really going on, what the real problem is. And that's a huge sense of achievement and accomplishment once you've done that. But at a very visceral level, I love the last 2 days of the quarter. For some, it's the last 2 days of the financial year. And the energy and the buzz that you get from that, I just feed on that. It brings me together, yeah, so great. I love it.
Great. You're all very welcome. Thanks for joining us. So before we get into the State of Sales report, just want to talk generally about sales technologies, where it is now, but then going back a little bit as well, what are the sort of critical sales technologies that you came across early in your career or mid through your career and the impact that they made. And then also with technology comes opportunity, but it also brings challenges in managing it. So I'm going to start a conversation with, how would you describe the changes you've seen in sales tech? And Jimmy, we'll start with you. So the changes you've seen in sales tech, but also give us a perspective on are you seeing radically different things with millennials, noting that millennials are now as old as 38, and Gen X like we are ourselves, right? Are you seeing radically different, or give us your perspective on that?
Sure. So you talk about the first technology I used, and unfortunately, I still remember my landline number because it was a landline and maybe a Rolodex. There may have been an Act Plus CRM tool in the background, but there was a finance system. We had none of the technology that we have now, or certainly nowhere near as advanced. And it has changed so much. If you consider, when we were reps, we're still selling, but when we were reps, we were out on the road. The amount of information you had access to was so limited compared to now. You have so much information at your fingertips to be able to go and bring insight to a customer at that very first contact. It's incredible how quickly it's moved.
That's incredible, actually. You just reminded me of something. When I was first a B2B rep, we didn't have mobile phones. And
I did, you see, so I'm younger.
After touche. And after coming out of a sales call, you would have to find the nearest phone box to the customer and call in to a typing pool to get a quotation to that customer. And that just seems so archaic as to where we are now. Paul, what about you?
Well, I would echo on the information piece, not to go down memory lane too much, all of us, because that's, but my first action every morning as a sales professional was I would open the Financial Times. I went to the company's page, and at the bottom of the front page of the company's page, there was an index. And alphabetically, it listed all the companies that were mentioned in the FT that day. It gave you the name of the company, and it gave you what pages it was referenced. I would flip to those pages, read about what was going on in that company, and feel a little bit more empowered or tooled up to be able to approach them, sell to them, and serve them. That was the Bible. That was the center of it all. Today, for me, the biggest change is the access to the relevant insight in a timely fashion. It's everywhere. It gives us great power, but with that great power comes great responsibility. And the fact is that in an informed world like today, you no longer can ask questions like, so tell me about your business, or what keeps you awake at night, or, you've given up the right to ask those questions that were valid 20 or 30 years ago. They no longer fly.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is also that our customers have more information about us than they've ever had before. So it is a double-edged sword, and we have to come in a very different way than we used to back in those days.
And what about the blend of people on your team? Are you seeing, people who are younger having a different approach versus people who are more mature in their career?
Yes. So not so much a different approach, and I'm going to call you out on the word millennial, if you don't mind me saying so, because it's a correct term, but it's usually preceded by a bad word, right? And it's usually in the context of a frustrated Gen Xer saying something about people of millennials. I think of them as Generation Y, which is also a technical term for them. And actually, I don't see a whole lot of differences between what they want and what they do than what I wanted and what I did and what I want and what I do today as well, right? We all want to achieve, we all want to deliver on behalf of our clients and our businesses and so on. And their behavior, in use of the tools, I don't see a huge difference. Now, I've got a very digital native biased team, a lot of people who would have grown up with that type of technology. And there is the old saying from Gartner, actually, that says, if it was invented before you were born, it's not technology. So I see a seamless adoption of the tools that we marvel at today. They just take it for granted.
Okay.
So I didn't address it because you asked me the same question. What we see in our organization, we have Gen Zs, we have millennials, we have Gen Xs. And actually in the organization, because we're so digitally tooled up, actually we don't have an adoption issue across the ages at all. It's in the parts of the organizations that I've worked in previously that don't have tech at their core. Trying to get adoption is difficult. So maybe some of the field sales guys who are on the road all the time, who use CRM as a put in the close date and the value, and that's about it. That's where the challenges are, not about their age.
Glenda, perspective?
Yeah, I would say from a customer perspective, we don't see a massive difference as long as the enablement program is rolled out properly. If you get your exec sponsors in and you actually establish a good training program, we don't see a major difference.
Great. And then, Paul, going back to you on a question. Here at LinkedIn, we use a lot of sales tools ourselves, and one that I was thinking about is that how do you think about the sales tools that your team use, like DocuSign? So, for example, if we remove DocuSign from everybody tomorrow, how material an impact would that be on our team, and how would our team feel about taking that technology away?
I think the first question that they would ask is, by how much is my quota going down? Because you just made my job that much harder. And actually, on an aside, what I love about DocuSign is that it feels like it's become a verb. You know, I'll DocuSign that to you, or can you sign, you know, it's a verb and a noun as well as a pronoun. And so some of my guys still do use PDF contracts in that context, but that's driven by the client's adoption. The client says, you know, I don't want to use an electronic version. If we were to take that kind of tool away, it would cause, I would argue, significant disruption to my team, angst, and they'd be banging down my virtual door looking for some form of relief.
Okay, interesting. So Glenda, this is all excuse me. This is all magic, okay?
Yes.
So as a business leader, what I do is I go out and I just buy software as a service. I tell my team I have it, and by magic, it just happens that they become more productive and successful. Is that how it works?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, my team just sit outside and they're not needed. No. I would say different organizations have different levels of agility. So it doesn't happen at the same pace in every organization. But definitely, if you take an SMB business and you bring in a digital transformation program, you can be up and running in like 3 months. So yeah, I think it depends on the organization. You definitely need to get the buy-in from the customer that they're going to have a trusted relationship with you, and it's a two-way street.
And just thinking about that, if you know, what do you see across all the customers your team deals with across our region? Are there 3 key things that you would advise anybody to think about before even starting?
Before starting their program?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always looking for an executive sponsor, somebody to actually be that champion and voice of the program. We're looking for champions within the sales organization or the customer success organization, whoever's going to be using the tool. But you have to reinforce it. Some people are early adopters. They absolutely love it. They're digital advocates and they will just hit the ground running with the tool or with various tools. But yeah, you have to really reinforce the usage of it. Just to make sure they're getting the best out of it, because we're constantly innovating and bringing in new technologies. There's APIs integrating with your CRM system. So yeah, it's a process. I wouldn't say once your transformation program is done, that's it. It's continual. So you have to have fresh energy on it all the time.
So it's an investment in transformation, not just the distribution of software.
Yeah.
It's interesting, the integration piece, that's what's key for us. You know, we could have such a we have a technology stack that's pretty deep in our organization, but we have to have it integrated into our CRM. We have to have a place the reps can go for their reporting or their insights or whatever information they're looking for. And we've made the decision to build all that into our CRM. The challenge that presents us as a global organization is sometimes it's difficult to bring the organization with you if, you know, you're trying to do it for a couple of hundred people or 1,000 people out of thousands.
Yeah.
You know, that's the challenge sometimes we have. Whereas I've seen in smaller organizations, we can be really agile and get it up and working really quickly.
Yeah.
But it's really worth it to have it all integrated.
Absolutely.
And I would actually echo that as well, because in my previous life, I implemented a CRM application, which I knew was going to be hard to do. So I did all of that change management stuff that you described. And, you know, I made a huge effort and it stuck. And then I implemented Sales Navigator. And because to me, it was just so obvious that this was a no-brainer, I just kind of threw it out there. And I sat back and I waited for the adulation to come. And, you know, the silence I heard was deafening because nobody was using it. Nobody saw what I saw. And I realized in time, thankfully, that I needed to get back in and treat that as a change management exercise.
Yeah, I mean,
which
what
surprised
we
me.
see is, you know, why would you change if it's working for you? So it's, people are reluctant, but once they see the efficiency gain and how much better they can be doing in a less amount of time, it's usually...
And what's typically at the root of that, you know, that resistance to or lack of adoption? What's your experience of you know, what are a couple of root causes to that?
I think people fear change in general, and if there isn't a good change management program like Paul talked about, and it's here's your new tool, go off and use it, I don't think that's helpful to anybody. So I think a really well controlled program, having an executive sponsor, whoever is going to be in, have enough authority and enough influence on an organization to really drive that tool will really work. And then just bringing in your champions, sharing success stories. You know, somebody on your team that's found a prospect or reduced time to close a deal. Sharing all of that information is really powerful.
Yeah, we do. We have our champions, and we publicise them internally. We get them loads of visibility, and they get lots of backslapping for being that hero and taking the chance and going and doing something different.
Yeah,
and they love it. Right? Costs nothing, takes no time.
And how critical, because the CEO can come out and say, this is important, we're going to do this. How critical are sales managers in adoption and measuring value?
Yeah, they're obviously really critical, right? They're at the front line. They're the ones driving the day-to-day. It's key.
And as a business leader, Jimmy, in the sort of messaging you would give to frontline sales managers, what are critical things you would ask them to do to help with the change in the adoption?
Yeah, well, we ask them to lead, right? We ask them to take it from the front and adopt and drive it themselves. If you can't get the frontline guys to do it, the reps won't follow.
So it's not just good enough the CEO comes out and says, hey, this is a great idea. You need the sales managers to be involved. You need an actual program, and it needs to be part of some sort of transformation.
Yes.
Paul, if you were to have a DeLorean and you could go back to your time previously, what are the sort of things you'd do differently at the beginning of that program?
Well, first and foremost, I didn't treat the sales management layer as a separate cohort.
Okay.
And that was a huge mistake of mine. So what happened was the reps rock up one morning, they have a new tool, they turn to their manager and go, hey, I got this new tool thing, what am I supposed to do with it? And the manager goes, I don't know. And so it was dead on arrival. And so what I should have done was get that management team together in advance, pre-brief, pre-wire them, have them ready to go, give them the tools and knowledge to support the rollout. That would have been number one. And the other one was I didn't involve marketing at all. So after I'd made the acquisition and implemented it, my chief marketing officer calls me and says, hey, I hear you got this thing. Can we try a couple of licenses? And actually the support they provided made a huge difference because they gave us insight and snackable content that we could go out there to share on a platform to promote our brand, promote as individuals. And it made all the difference. And so I would involve marketing as well.
So don't go on a journey on your own.
Precisely.
Okay.
Well
Fantastic.
summed up, Liam.
Okay. There's a reason I'm the post. Okay. So we're going to pivot and look at the State of Sales report. The State of Sales report is something that we've been doing here at LinkedIn since 2018. So, for 5 years. We currently have the 2018 report on the desk in front of us. The 2019 report is coming pretty soon. And as part of putting this information together, we survey thousands and thousands of salespeople, sales managers, but we also survey decision makers at companies that those sales teams are trying to sell to. And we primarily focus on some of the larger countries here in Europe, as well as the US, so UK, France, Germany, and the US. And just want to discuss some of the findings we've had out of the report. And one of the ones that we've seen is the data's out right now is that 56% of the sales professionals that we've surveyed are saying they're spending more and more time using technology platforms. How do we support those salespeople even more?
With their usage.
With their usage, with how they should think about it, broaden their perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo Paul's point. I don't think it's in isolation. It has to be an organizational change. If you're going to adopt sales technology, it has to be part of your overall company strategy. But what I would say is it's easier now than ever. We have open source, for example. We've vendors now which are willing to collaborate with one another, whereas previously you used to have to buy an entire solution end to end. That ruled out a lot of small SMB businesses that actually couldn't afford to buy. It actually might even rule out some enterprise businesses that don't want to invest heavily in technology. So I think the opportunity now is that we're willing to collaborate. And I think the real game changer now is you have to personalize to fit your customer.
Absolutely.
So I've seen that as a bit of a disruption.
And Jimmy, clearly you've spoken about Vodafone has a very deep tech stack.
Yes.
What, are you seeing that more and more, there's more of an appetite?
Certainly in our organisation, in the digital sales organisation, yes. We're constantly trying to find new tools that can benefit the reps, but not just the reps, but also the back office, back end side of things. So we're currently looking at how we can use AI tools to help us with our propensity modeling. So at the moment, it's people with big brains and lots of data and Excel, right? Some SQL. But we're looking at tools that we can, again, integrate into our CRM tool to help us with propensity. Because if we've got guys carrying quotas, managing 300-400 accounts, where do they focus?
And just on that, you've mentioned a couple of times that it's not about the system, it's about the system's ability to integrate into your CRM at the hub.
Yes, absolutely.
So does that mean if someone's coming with a technology, sales technology for you, it doesn't integrate into your CRM, it's great, but...
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've had a couple of instances of that.
Okay.
Where we've seen some tech that we've really liked, but actually the integration effort, sometimes internally, is too much, and we've just pulled away from it.
So it sounds like you've got to have an overall technology strategy.
Yes, which we do.
Your sales stack.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Paul, a perspective on that viewpoint?
So I would say that on the integration piece, you can live with it not being integrated for a while, perhaps at a test level or in a pilot environment, but absolutely it does need to combine. What do we do as leaders to ensure that our reps can continue to leverage various technologies of any shape or form, is we have to firstly truly believe in it. And we have to bring it to the team, not as an option, but as a must do. And we have to explain the why behind it, right? In particular, the why. It's not just enough, because I said so, you've lost the battle, right? If that's the answer, you've lost. You have to explain the why, but they have to know that it's not optional, and you have to live and breathe it. And that's where most implementations fall down, is that people roll it out there and then back away.
Yeah.
Okay, so the salespeople have an appetite, but you've also got to explain what the corporate vision is, what the company vision is.
And what's in it for them.
Absolutely. The fascinating thing for me that's come out of the State of Sales report, that's actually been pretty consistent, it's still fascinating, is that when it comes to what decision makers are looking, so pivoting away from salespeople to decision makers, the thousands of people we've spoken to, they've rated trust in a salesperson in their choice of a solution higher than the ROI they expect from the solution. So what do we think's at play there?
From a customer perspective, I think absolutely I would agree with that. And I think it's a two-way street. So if you're going to go on an implementation journey with a customer, there has to be trust on both levels. For me, I think what digital has brought us is you're building your brand. It's out there before you even meet the customer, before you even get to meet them and build that relationship. So I think that trust is even starting to be built before you've even met them. So it's so important that your message as a sales organization and a marketing organization is aligned. I absolutely agree. Yeah, that trust would be up there, number one.
I couldn't agree more, right? And one of my biggest fears is with all the technology that we're adopting, that trust starts to go because there's less humans involved. You know, it's so important that, yes, we have the tech stack, but it's still about humans. It's still about people connecting. And you can't let that go. You have to maintain that connection with people. And, you know, it is one of my fears as we automate, you know, and as we connect sales and marketing, and there's even more automation, that we end up with this very robotic. We all know when you get the email, that's not personalized.
Yeah.
You know, that scares me.
It's a fascinating discussion because I've had various discussions with people who have misinterpreted what, you know, digitally enabling your sales team. It's not about your sales team stopping to engage in traditional ways. You know, if you're a field salesperson, you've still got to go have conversations with your customer.
Absolutely.
But to Paul's point, you don't show up in their office and say, "Hey, what do you do around here?" Because, you know, 20 years ago that would have bought you credibility because the customer would have been saying, "Well, you know, this salesperson wants to find out about our business before they try to sell." Whereas now, that customer is sitting there going, "Can't believe the salesperson is sitting here and they haven't researched me, haven't researched the organization."
I can't put my finger on the data, but isn't it one of the analysts said, it's like buyers are typically 60% of the way through the buying journey before they speak to anybody. So you can't rock up and ask the question.
There's an interesting statistic we've shared at a couple of our conferences where an Accenture report of 1,000 buyers globally, that 74% of those buyers don't believe that sales can help them. When you double click on the what they mean by that, they actually mean that somebody rocking up to say, "Hey, I'm here to help you," can't help them. But somebody who comes along to them and shares a perspective about their industry, their company, the people that they're dealing with and is able to talk about their product, service, or
Bring
solution in an insights way and precisely, and also in a customized way, they want to deal with people like that.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with the traditional, how can I help you?
Tell me about your pain.
approach. Tell me about your pains, what keeps you awake at night, those lovely questions. And Paul, what about yourself?
So look, for me, I'm surprised that trust isn't number 1, 2, and 3 on that list, because without trust, you have no relationship, and you can quantify the ROI all you want, but if you don't trust the person selling it to you, why would you believe the ROI, right? So it's a necessary condition for the rest of the things to happen.
I would
So-
say person and company. Sorry.
Yeah, person,
No, no,
and,
you go.
sorry, person
Yeah.
and company.
Just because we know sellers move and you want to maintain that
Correct.
integrity throughout.
Fair point.
Yeah.
And just give me an example, because you know, both Glenda and you spoke about that, you know, trust now starts even before you've met the person.
Absolutely. So as a buyer,
Talk a little bit about that.
Sorry, as a buyer, through my buying journey, I'm always setting little tests along the way to make sure that I can build trust in the individual. And it's simple things like, do they show up on time? Do they follow up with the things they say they're going to do? Do they furnish the introduction that they promised to make? But even before we've had that very first meeting, I'm researching them, through various social platforms. If I know somebody who knows them, I'm asking for, would you recommend I meet this person or not? So before they've even come in the room, I've already reached God help me, a preconception of what to expect. And that's perhaps narrow-minded of me, but, I have the tools at my disposal, I'm going to use them.
And they're tools that are available to you now that would not have been available to you 25 years ago.
Exactly, yeah. Look, how would I have known who was the individual coming through the door 25 years ago? There was no way of knowing unless we were related to each other. That was about it.
Okay, cool.
And I come from a big Irish family, so it's possible. But
Definitely in Ireland we don't have 6 degrees of separation. So then, just moving on to one of the other pieces that surfaces from the State of Sales report is that we're actually seeing a correlation between very tight sales and marketing orchestration. So what we're seeing is that a higher level of performance at sales organizations where there's tighter orchestration between sales and marketing, and actually a big value from the perspective of the salespeople valuing what marketing are doing. How would you characterize that in most organizations? Glenn, I'm going to go you first, because you see thousands of customers across our region of different sizes. What do you see in that space?
I actually think it goes beyond that. So I partner very closely with the marketing organisation, and a lot of customer success or post-implementation teams would have marketing on their team. Because it's not just like one sale and then you're finished. It's how do we maintain that relationship? How can we continue to grow together and continue to solve solutions for the customer? So I see it as a continuing journey, but so important that we're working together.
And Jimmy, an external view on that in terms of is as a sales leader, how important is marketing to you?
It's critical. So actually in our own organisation, we've developed an internal marketing team to help us speak the language of our marketing colleagues out in the organisation, in the markets, so we can get tightly aligned. So we have an organisation just to help us with messaging and with lead flow and getting campaigns working and orchestrated, to the point that in some of our markets, 90% of our revenue comes from inbound. And that's marketing generated activity, organizations coming to us. So, we couldn't survive without that tight alignment and that quick response. And it's critical.
that sounds dangerously like a shadow marketing organization you put in place. Though.
Well aligned.
Good. Glad to hear it. From my perspective, if I look at my top performing reps, they treat marketing as a partner, which is an overused word. They treat they look at themselves as small business owners, right? So they are responsible for their own business, and then they will pull in and collaborate with marketing and actually with a whole bunch of other stakeholders to achieve their business goals. And marketing is a key stakeholder for that. So I'll see a number of my reps come together and they'll put a compelling event together with marketing. It might be an executive dinner, but they'll run that all themselves along with marketing. They'll form up, they'll do it, they'll deliver on it, and then they'll break apart again and then form different alliances within the organization. Mm. So that's something that I never saw myself doing as a sales rep, was to see that level of ownership among the sales team, that they will collaborate like that.
and just to see how important marketing is going. So if you look at some of the McKinsey had a report recently that talked about the change in buying behavior, and that, you know, with Gen Zs, which are going to be the buyers in 5-10 years from now, they don't want to be sold to. You have to get them to come to you. Yeah. You know, marketing have to have assets that bring these people to you, so they come to you, and once they've come to you, there's an element of trust built immediately. And, you know, that's alignment with sales and marketing again. It can't happen, you know, without marketing being really strong and working.
So just on that point then, you know, because, you know, we often hear about sales and marketing not being aligned, even though sales and marketing has been nested as a business term for a long time. What sort of advice would you guys give to a sales leader today who is working in an organization that's not tightly aligned, arranging a meeting with their marketing director, CMO? What does that conversation look like? How do you help each other?
I think if you're both aligned to each other's objectives and goals, because they're typically not always aligned. You know, marketing may have one set of objectives and sales another. Get aligned. If you can understand, if sales can understand the value marketing can bring and have some alignment in terms of your objectives and what you're trying to achieve, I think you can make some progress.
That sounds foundational.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Glenda, perspective?
Yeah, I'd just say if you're not consistent as a brand, you've lost that trust straight away. With so many people, if you're misaligned from a sales and marketing perspective, that trust that you gain with your company brand will be gone. I think you're really missing out there.
Okay. And then Paul, from your experience, not just at LinkedIn, but why?
Iterative to this, but add on top of that and say if you had the opportunity to bring the marketing function under your role as a sales leader. So I've run operations where I've been a client of marketing and where I've run marketing as part of my remit. And I've always felt, rightly or wrongly, I felt more aligned when that was part of my org structure.
Yeah.
Simple as.
And if you can't get to that point, I think we should all take responsibility for being a marketeer of the company. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And then just a final question on the state of sales is that you know, next year is our 6th year of publishing it. If you were to project forward, and the 4 of us are sitting here 12 months from now, and there's something that you would want to see inside the state of sales report, which is an indicator of how our industry and our profession is continuing to evolve and elevate, what sort of thing would you like to see reflected in the state of sales?
If I may go first, because I'm very passionate about the concept of elevating the sales professional. What would I hope to see, or what I expect to see? What I would hope to see is that successful sales organizations have entirely turned their back on cold, untargeted mass outreach. Nobody likes making cold calls, nobody likes receiving cold calls. And there's this dance that goes on hundreds of thousands of times every day between buyers and sellers as they're trying to find or avoid each other. And I would love to see that die away. It's old tech, it's old technique, and it's no longer has a place. I think it'll take some time.
Yeah, that's fascinating actually, because in the various conferences that I've been at in the last 3 years, and you know, one of the questions I often ask of an audience is, if you have responded to and purchased something for your company as a result of cold outreach during the last 12 months, could you please put your hand in the air? And so far, and I do a lot of conferences, I've not seen one hand. Okay. Wow. And then the rhetorical question then is, are you asking your sales team to cold outreach? Because if you are, how effective do you believe they are to people like you? So fascinating on that. Jimmy, what about you?
I think the future of our workforce is coming really quickly, right? Gen Zs, and I'd love to know more about, you know, how do we engage these individuals? How do we bring them into our teams? How do we motivate them? How do we get them energized? But also from a buyer perspective, how do we treat them differently? You know, we can't engage with them on Snapchat. So how do we engage that younger generation that will be the buyer in a couple of years from now?
Interesting. So this perspective is not just how do we look at the different generations and technology adoption, but what's a Gen Z buyer going to look like, different to the previous generations. Cool. Excellent. And Glenda?
Yeah, I would like to see a little bit more about the future skills that are going to be required. I think we're going to need more of DevOps if we continue to have all of these CRM integrations, APIs, products working together rather than that end-to-end solution. Yeah, I think I'd like to look at what skills are going to be required. And to your point, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what the customer wants. I think it's moving, it's shifting from a world where, you know, the buyer or the seller was knocking down the door, and now it's all about what can I solve, you know, solutions.
Interesting, because as Jimmy spoke about CRM being the central hub on which everything else hangs off and has to integrate, you'd like to see that reflected in the report, and then what are the skills an organization needs in order to be able to support that environment.
Absolutely, because you know, your people out there are the people that are going to have to be fixing that system if you're using open source, for example. So we're going to have to train some people.
Excellent. I will share my own perspective. I'm +1 on everything that each of you has said, but also as we talk about more sales and marketing orchestration, actually I believe that we should not have a state of sales report, we should have a state of sales and marketing report for 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. We are going to pivot in a completely different direction. We're going to have a buzzword round, okay? So I'm going to give you a buzzword or buzz phrase, and I'd like you to categorize it as either overrated and why, or underrated and why. Right. And Paul, looking at you, so we're going to kick off with you.
Hit me.
And your buzzword for 10 points is artificial intelligence.
Underrated. And obviously only speaking in the context of the sales, B2B sales environment, it's underrated because the biggest differentiator in a rep achieving their goals is how they spend their time. And artificial intelligence gives us the ability to define so many next best actions. Sales reps have very large territories. They sit down on a Monday morning and they say, oh my God, you know, what am I going to do now? Who should I call? What email should I respond to? And artificial intelligence is giving us a menu of high impact activities that we can select from. And the key word is select, right? We're not becoming machines. It's presenting you, it's providing you with the insight to allow you to take the next best action in that moment. And I think there's a lot more to come from that.
Okay, cool. Jimmy?
I agree completely. It's completely underrated. The potential for AI is a bit scary. So I was at a session in London Business School recently, and we listened to a futurist talk about AI technologies. And he showed us one example of an AI computer that within 4 hours was taught the rules of chess, and within 4 hours was able to go and beat the previously unbeaten supercomputer in 4 hours. So just what it was able to learn. And even you look at some of the technology that's available right now to do propensity modeling, like Paul talked about, or AI which we're looking at, is to qualify your first round of leads. So have those first couple of conversations. What are you looking for? How can I help you? All those easy to ask questions. And when it gets complicated, passed to a human. You know, that exists now. All that stuff is now. So the potential is incredible / scary.
Actually, just to come back on that point, right? If you think about your sales organization and you think about what your win rate is, right? Let's say it's 20% off the top of your head. That means for the first 4 days of every week, you're working on opportunities that don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And you're actually only doing business on the 5th day of the week. And I believe AI can help you change those maths dramatically.
Especially if you're an organization with lots of data. But actually, even if you're a small organization who maybe doesn't have loads of data, there's so much data available externally now that you can leverage and apply. It's available for anybody of any size.
Yeah.
Glenda?
Underrated, of course. I couldn't go against them now. I don't fear it. I actually just can't wait to embrace more AI. We're bringing a lot of it now into LinkedIn. It's very exciting. I mean, imagine a world where you don't have to fill in your CRM system. Amazing. Just can't wait. So underrated. I think there's nothing to be feared. I think we will continue to do the thinking and they will do the doing. So it'll be a nice partnership. We don't need to worry about the robots.
Yeah.
Excellent. Coexistence
what do you
with
think,
the
Leo?
robots.
Yeah.
My own view is that I also believe it's underrated. So in terms of, I don't believe in that it's artificial intelligence or people. It's artificial intelligence and people. So this is about helping you to understand how to get better. And we see I see a lot of potential for using AI in a smart way to augment what people are doing already. I don't believe the robots are going to turn up and do a sales job, right? And
But they'll
actually,
do some of it. They won't do it
they'll
all.
do
but they'll
absolutely,
some, 'cause you
absolutely.
still need a human.
Absolutely,
Right?
and
Still
actually,
human and trust.
I was in Silicon Valley a couple of months ago, and I saw a very clever advert from the Prudential Insurance Company of America, right on the highway in Silicon Valley, saying, "Retire now before the robots take your job." Okay, and it's amusing, but and it gets your attention, and it makes for a good Instagram clip. But I don't believe that's going to happen in a lot of cases.
And of all the places to put that poster, right?
It's pretty amusing. Okay, so we're going to go next buzzword, next buzz phrase, and Glenda, we're going to start with you this time. Hyper personalization.
Can I take away the hyper? No.
You can do whatever you want to do.
Underrated. I think personalization is key. If I think about my own personal buying journey, I like it to be personal. Netflix, I went for a coffee this morning. They knew my name. They knew what I wanted. It was all very enjoyable. I think if automation lets us down, or AI, it's a disaster. So if it's controlled and policed properly, I think it's underrated, and it can be used if it can be used to its full potential.
I think it's underrated. The potential is underrated. Again, it's so frustrating when you get the LinkedIn request with no personalization / ignore. I don't know this person.
Yeah.
Or when you get the emails that's not personalized. But that's the basic stuff.
Yeah.
But there's so much data now. If an individual can't take the time to go and personalize communication, I was going to get my phone and I can't read it on this, it's not going to get through. Yeah. So it's so important. It has to be. The more personalization you can put into it, the more chance you have of getting somebody.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that, but I will take the contrary view and say that hyper-personalization is overrated.
Okay.
It's personalization always was critical to great sales. It is today, and it always will be. I don't know where the hyper word came from, but no, it's overrated. It's like saying, you know what, it's a really good idea not to go to your client drunk. Yeah, well, that's a really good idea. Yeah, let's not go drunk to visit my client. Let me personalize my engagement with my client. I think it's a ticket to the game.
So I think what you're saying is that great salespeople have always personalized their approach.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what you basically, and then what I hear is that technology can help all salespeople drive more personalization.
Even at scale, which may sound counterintuitive, but at scale, yes. But it's about how you use it. And indeed, dear insert name here, that's not going to get you very far.
No. Yeah. But even the Dear Jimmy comma, the fact that they got the comma, that's not going to work either anymore. Yeah. I disagree.
But
I think
there's a comma after Jimmy.
I think there has to be, but sometimes they'll put in two. Or to forget it. I think you have to go deeper. You have to go deeper. You have to find insights. You have to be really, you have to find something that's a nugget. You have to have done some research. Yeah. Just firing out, it's the same as a cold call. Just ignore it. You have. So I believe you have to go hyper personal.
So it's personalized in Dear Jimmy, but the personalization stops there.
Yeah, that's not personal.
Okay. Okay.
No,
yeah.
It's the next level of that. You have to, and it takes time. I guess back to my comment earlier. Big fear: the robots do it all. They won't. You need humans to put time into doing that research and getting that insight, and then coming to Liam with something that I know, Liam, but something about we know that you're passionate about. That's what will get somebody.
So it's about having some insights that you then weave into a personalized discussion. Okay,
really
cool.
personal discussion.
All right, our last buzz phrase, and Paul, we'll kick off with you this time.
Bring it on.
Hope you're ready.
Yeah.
It's actionable analytics.
So I think actionable analytics are also underrated, but I'm actually going to revert back to my first answer because maybe you can help me understand the difference between, I think of AI as being a source of actionable analytics.
Okay.
And so I kind of see
One
the
of
two
the-
together. So underrated because of what I said earlier about next best actions and what did you call it? The propensity modeling and so on. Is there a difference between the two?
I think there's a difference in terms of artificial intelligence is about interrogating and making decisions and surfacing information. The actionable analytics is making a recommendation to you as to what you might do with that information next.
Well, so in that case, absolutely underrated. And I guess, I do see the two as being closely aligned.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think they're really important and they'll have a huge impact on our business in the future.
I agree. Again, completely underrated. But I commented earlier, the rep with 400 accounts. How are they going to be proactive unless they've got somebody guiding them in a direction?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Agree. Underrated. I think you need to build on it though. There has to be a triggered event. What are you going to do now with this? And it brings the question around skills again. We've all this data. What are we going to do with it? So I think you really need to invest heavily in data scientists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you, Liam?
Well, my view is that it's very like Glenda, is that data on its own is of no use to you. It's what does it mean, and then what are the actions that it should then trigger. And the more we can help salespeople, the more we can help engineers with that, surface through artificial intelligence, guided by how you do business. So the artificial intelligence might surface it in a generic format for all businesses, but your actionable analytics are how do you use it in business, and what are your trigger events for how you do business. So, so I see it as a flow. Thank you for participating in the buzzwords. We had a lot of agreement, so we didn't need the UN. So, going to go to some of the questions on the live stream. So, not going to ask you specifically. So, please take the questions that you feel have most resonance for you. So, here's a question: as sales leaders, are there any sales trends that have not been mentioned today that you see as an up and coming trend in the coming year?
Actually, if in the coming year, so yes, and I'm actually going to use an example of a client of ours at the moment. There's a company in Denmark called Templify, which is a SaaS platform that helps organizations to be consistent with their branding and their brand assets that they manage. Imagine a scenario where you've got multiple offices, multiple people, and they're all using different versions of your PowerPoint template. Well, Templify is a SaaS platform that helps you make sure that that's consistently deployed. And these guys, so they're a client of ours, but they started in Denmark, and they started as a global first operation. So they didn't see their territory as Copenhagen and then the regions and then maybe the Nordics and then Europe. They saw it as the entire world. So I think you're going to see more disruptive players who, for the first time in, I would say, the history of business, have the opportunity to operate at the same scale as the very largest operators in any market. So the SMB, the sole trader, the individual has a voice and has the global reach that they've never had before. And we're going to see more of those smaller companies disrupt the larger players.
Okay, interesting. Anybody else got a perspective on that?
It's not in the next year, but Omnichannel.
Yeah. Okay.
That experience to start an engagement from a lead or maybe a web chat right through to potentially to a salesperson, that handoff, that the experience the experience stays positive and stays consistent, so that the customer feels engaged right through the process.
Okay.
And there's a couple of organizations, the digital natives do this really well, but especially for legacy-ish companies like us, or like us, not you, that's important to get that.
Okay. Glenda, maybe you can take this one. We've got a question from Duncan. Duncan, thanks for your question. Bringing in technology is arguably the easy bit. It's the cultural change that's the biggest challenge. Have you approached cultural change, and to what success? So give us your perspective.
Completely agree, Duncan. Thank you for the question. The technology, everybody's excited about it. It's like getting a new phone. You're opening it, you're like, great, this is very exciting. And then a couple of months later, you're only using 2 apps on it. So I absolutely agree. I think the technology is the easiest part. It has to be in the DNA of the culture. So whatever your cultures and values are, whatever your strategy is for that year, has to be embedded. Yeah. And I think it goes back to like appealing to the why and the heart of why you're trying to do this. If you give your team a new sales technology and they're hitting their quota without it, like they're not going to use it. But if you show and demonstrate, with champions, with success stories, why it's working, really appeal to the heart of people, I think it will work. But yeah, absolutely agree. Technology is easier than people.
Jimmy, you've been involved in a couple of technology changes at a couple of companies. What's your perspective for Duncan?
Similar, right? It's getting the champion, having somebody and having that champion up, in lights as the person who's having great success because of their adoption. It's having your frontline teams driving it. It's having leadership driving it. It's just building it into the DNA.
Okay, cool.
I would just add listening. So we have often brought change programs through organizations and it hasn't worked, and taking a step back and saying, why? What's wrong here? Maybe they're not ready. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe there's loads of other things going on. They're going through a CRM integration right now. Should we take a step back? So I think timing is everything, and actually listening to the people that the change is affecting, having them really at the core of your change to ensure that you actually know how it's been received.
Just some words for advice for perspective, Duncan, for me is that all organizations have a different speed of change. And we often talk to customers about their expectations, and a question I have for them is, the last time you had a major change in organization that was extremely successful, what did the change curve look like? How long did it take you? What were the steps in it? Because the likelihood is that if you're embarking on a significant change, it's going to take that trajectory. And if that trajectory and time frame is 12 to 18 months, then it's unrealistic for you to expect a major change to happen with something else in 6 months. So, and whereas at other organizations, 6 months may be their change, cycle. Thanks for your question. So, we question from Lauren. How can I encourage my sales teams to use technology to its best ability to find new business? Paul, I'm going to hit you, as you're a leader in the new business space.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit you with this one.
Great. Well, thanks for the question, Lauren. I think it's a great question, not just about new business, but about any adoption. And I would refer back to the kind of change management tactics that we've described earlier on. But I would also add into that identifying the inputs that you think are important. So, for example, when I grew up in sales, an input was 50 dials a day, or how many meetings were you doing? Identify the inputs that matter and that can be impacted by that new technology. Get agreement for that, and make sure that you're getting the buy-in that these inputs really matter. They're not just metrics for the sake of metrics, but they're bringing you to a closer goal. Measure those, recognize the success that comes with those, use what the Americans call Moneyball tactics, which is find those who are doing it well and elevate them and have them tell their stories and have them explain to others from their peers what's working for them. And slowly, you'll get the adoption that you need.
I guess it's the same as Duncan's question.
Yeah.
Similar.
It is similar. Yeah. I think just to add to it, I would steer clear, Lauren, of talking about product features, or we're not talking about product features in technology transformations. You're talking about the why and what you're going to get from it. So I'd really focus on that rather than this button's going to do this technology is going to give you this. It's what result are you trying to achieve, and don't try go too fast.
But also championing those people who are using it to make a difference. Okay,
cool. Get them up in lights.
Okay, we got a question from Adele. Adele would like to know that building trust is absolutely key. So that conversation we had earlier on has certainly landed. How can you build a personal brand to help you?
It's a very LinkedIn question.
Oh, yeah. So how can you as an individual build a personal brand? Well, it's a mixture of offline and online, right? So I talked earlier about setting little tests for my sales, for the people who sell to me. So do what you say and say what you're going to do and be clear on that. In a digital space, it's being proactive and active in forums that matter to you, right? And not just on LinkedIn, but because I know LinkedIn better than others, I'm going to use that as an example. Join the groups. There's probably millions of or hundreds of thousands of different groups on LinkedIn. Join the groups that matter to you, be it for your professional or even your personal interests, and actively participate in those groups. And give before you ask, right? So whenever you're engaging with somebody, offer something of value before you think you've got the right to ask for anything in return. So be that proactive giver and earn that right, and that you're building trust that way. Simple, I hope.
I would just add, like, try work in an industry that you're passionate about, because it comes across with your personal brand and your professional brand. That may be a luxury sometimes, but I think try and find an area you have passion in, and that will come across in your brand.
Okay.
That's a much better piece of advice than mine.
Thank God you answered that. Because,
Can we go back?
We'll follow Glenda's advice. Okay. Thank you, Glenda. So got a question, Donovan name on it. I think this is a reaction to the violent agreement that we had around the buzz phrases. Is there a buzz phrase that you think is overrated? That's being used right now in sales and marketing?
Gosh, my head's hurting as I think about it.
You're trying to sift through all the buzzwords.
Can you think of one?
It's a great question.
automation
Yeah.
scares me a little, right? Because we can over automate too much, and again back to losing using the experience. If we just be careful about trying to automate it too quickly. That would be the only thing that I think is a bit overrated. Automation is good, of course, but just careful.
I would go with things like solution, right? The term solution. It's kind of died out for the last few years, but suddenly everybody was a solution, right? They weren't a product or a thing; they were a solution. And trusted partner. It's a rarefied air to be a trusted partner, but everybody likes to say they are the trusted partner as opposed to a supplier. And we all want to be trusted partners, but we're not always trusted partners. Yeah.
So showing up and saying to somebody, my objective of this meeting is to become your trusted advisor.
Oh, actually, advisor, that's the word. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. It's earned, not stated.
Not given,
okay.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, Glenda?
Don't know. When you were saying automation, I was thinking of transformation, even though that was my title in my previous job. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's not an entire transformation. We're just trying to fix pockets of the business.
I have one.
So it could be overused, let's just say.
Digital.
Well, yeah. Well, I was just about to say the one
Spoken
that
by the head of digital.
I know, but the reality is digital is now ubiquitous. Digital is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
If you're not digital, or everyone's using digital, but actually it's everywhere now.
Yeah, I was actually going to hit digital. It's controversial. Digital transformation. You know, we see a lot of organizations talking about we're offering solutions in digital transformation. We're going through a digital transformation. Well, you know, if you think about digital transformation, what part of your business are you digitally transforming? Are you just digitally transforming your e-commerce site? But is there an end-to-end solution? So for me, if you talk about digital transformation in a silo, it's a buzzword. If you talk about it as a collective or holistically, then it's a transformation program.
Yeah.
Okay. We have absolutely tons of questions, which we unfortunately can't get to all of them. So thank you for your questions. There is an opportunity that if you have a question you want to ask, we've got a survey coming out, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So I'd like to thank the panel for being here. Appreciate the time. Yeah. And to everyone who's joined in, I hope that you enjoyed our first ever Live with Sales Leaders. It's been great to have you with us. You can learn more about the State of Sales Report 2019 in the follow-up email that we send to you. And you will also have an opportunity to give us some feedback, and we really want your feedback of how this session worked for you. And if you're interested in following anything up with us, you've got an opportunity to input your details. So thanks for being here, thanks for tuning in, and have a great day.